Hi, Bernard here once again. I've got something for you. It's a crash course I call Theology 101 Christianity on the Road. If there is an objective criterion by which to evaluate and to validate the right practice of the Christian faith, it's on the road. And that principle matches that of our technical understanding of democracy. The majority prevail over the minority. It appears that many drivers, much less traffic enforcers, don't know or understand a fundamental traffic law that's indispensably binding upon all. It's called the right of way. The principle of the right of way is so essential and crucial that if one defies it, the danger of injury or worse, fatality, befalls upon more lives. It is akin to the principle of human rights. The violation of a human life complicates like a domino effect into a social dysfunctionality, resulting in its worst, anarchy. There are drivers who seem to be too Christian in a wrong way. To illustrate, a flowing traffic on a highway where the regulated speed is 60 to 100 kilometers per hour could be disrupted dangerously if a driver suddenly decides, out of kindness, to let an insistent motorcycle or pedestrian cross, even on a pedestrian lane, unmindful of the speeding vehicles behind. Well, our assumption here is that there are no traffic lights in place because if there were, there would be no argument whatsoever. I believe that the Christian principle to invoke in this case is the greater good, that is, involving more lives. Having pointed this out, I find it erroneous to invoke, like an absolute law, that whenever there is a pedestrian lane, as many would believe, I heard them say this time and again, no? That pedestrians may cross anytime they want, even if the traffic is heavily flowing and at great speed. In spite of pedestrian lanes, every pedestrian, needless to say, must consider crossing if no traffic is flowing at a given moment. On the other hand, drivers, if yet from a distance, seeing a pedestrian lane, must be alerted already to slow down if there are pedestrians wanting to cross or are already crossing, in which case, any driver for that matter must decide to execute a mandatory brake. If there were no pedestrians in sight, on the other hand, why would the driver stop on a pedestrian lane? I have cited two scenarios above which apply a different lawful or moral attitude on the part of the pedestrian on one hand and the driver on the other hand. This is something that I observe lacking in wisdom among many traffic enforcers, much less among drivers and pedestrians. I compare the above scenarios to the proper application of Christian moral principles rooted in the respect of inviolable and inalienable human rights. The road is a metropolitan of continuously changing conditions and situations involving human lives. Thus, everyone who gets into that scenario must competently assess one's proper, right, and moral behavior. And the guiding principle? The right of way. Whoever is right there on a critical scene must be protected and given the due primary regard of the right of way. Every vehicle on an auxiliary road must give way to those on main thoroughfares. Needless to say, vehicles negotiating highways characteristic of more lanes must be given priority over any vehicle from minor or auxiliary roads. Same is true with pedestrians. They should cross when the road is free of flowing vehicles. I noticed that a major culprit among pedestrians and even drivers is impatience. As they get to the pedestrian lane, they would compete with vehicles that are already there flowing. Likewise, drivers who already see pedestrians crossing are obliged to slow down and halt before the pedestrian lane to avoid scaring the pedestrians. The above applies too to vehicles making U turns or wishing to turn left or right. In the absence of road signs concerning making turns, patience demands that one should wait for its turn, giving the right of way to those who are currently flowing. Needless to say, only when there's sufficient space must one execute its turn. Such space would surely be coming in no time. You time it, and it would just be a matter of seconds, and you'd have the space. All the aforesaid illustrations of varying cases on the roads could be simply translated into the very Christian principle of reverence for the dignity of human persons, namely, where others' rights begin, one's own end. Finally, because we have to admit that there is no such thing as perfect or absolute in our temporal world, we have to apply such moral principle in the most practicable social principle called democracy. The majority rule or prevail over the minority. However, even this is misconstrued. This doesn't mean that the minority are neglected or shouldn't be heard. What the above principle just simply means is that the good that the majority choose or decide must also be the good that the minority could benefit from, even if they are thinking of some different good for themselves. The minority need to adjust and to adapt to what the majority decide to be what's good for everyone. This is especially true for legislation. Still, the society through the state must be open and must listen to the minority's wishes or propositions to figure out if they are indeed viable and make sense. To end, it could be said that kindness is such a sweet virtue to behold, but if it ignores the others, it becomes fanatical. My 2 cents for your good thoughts. Thank you.